Zach,
Eric, doing great, man. How are you?
and it's Friday, feeling great, ready to talk about Agentforce, ready to talk about Salesforce AI. Excited to be doing this with you.
You know, what better topic for a Friday morning than AI and Agentforce?
I'm 2 cups of coffee in. I'm ready to get this thing rolling.
I'm about halfway through my first one, and I think I might have to get up mid-conversation to get another one. It's going to be great.
There we go. There we go. Hey, well, for you and I, we live in this world, right? We think about this day in and day out. But for most people out there, AI, Agentforce, maybe a foreign concept. So let's just start there. Like, what is Agentforce and why should business owners care?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to describe it is how to get LLM capabilities within your CRM. So that is just the basic way to think about it, right? In non-marketing speak, Agentforce is Salesforce's solution to integrate generative AI directly on the Salesforce platform. So it allows you to build, customize, deploy autonomous AI agents to help with tasks in your CRM. So simple use cases like connecting your knowledge base to a service agent where somebody can go and just get immediate answers to anything from the knowledge base as opposed to having to scan the website or call in or email in and get a response that way, right? There's also internal use cases. So if you want to chat with an AI co-pilot that can help you summarize records in the CRM, or you want to ask questions about data and it can just go and search for that data for you instead of having to click through a bunch of different screens. So there's a lot of use cases for it, but ultimately it really just boils down to Agentforce is how you can leverage generative AI internally for your Salesforce org, as well as externally for users to be able to interact with data that's stored on the platform or even connected to anything through Data Cloud.
So a lot of people watching have probably heard of ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT is a large language model. That's the one that's in the news. You get a new one of these launching every other week. Everyone's as more advanced as the one before. The real benefit to Agentforce is it allows those sort of large language models to leverage the data internal to a company. So the data that's housed in that CRM. So previously, a customer may have gone onto a help site and typed in a question and maybe had to sort through several knowledge base articles. Now the agent will they can speak directly with the agent. The agent then can go access that data and answer the question for them. Is that fair enough?
Yeah, if we think about kind of what generative AI is, it's grounded on some source of data, right? So ChatGPT is grounded on just a monumental selection of data across the internet, across books, really just everything, right? It's being fed a ton of data and information for general purpose so that you can ask questions, ask it to generate things for you, things like that. Well, Agentforce is going to be much more constrained. And that's a good thing for your business because it's not going to be answering questions based on data that isn't related to your business. So we call that grounding, which is the source of the data that the AI is allowed to access and then generate responses from. And because Agentforce is grounded on your business data, it's more trusted, it's more reliable. You have a much higher confidence that what it's going to be generating is going to be based off of information specific to your business. And the way that we do that is by connecting it to the CRM, by connecting it to other business sources through Data Cloud. If you have other systems where you're storing customer data that the agent should be able to interact with. And it's also highly trusted through a product called the Einstein Trust Layer. And it's doing things like masking personally identifiable information before it gets sent out to the LLM. There's a zero retention policy with OpenAI in terms of the data that's sent from Salesforce to the LLM gateway with OpenAI. So there's a lot of sort of safety protocols that come in place as well, which you don't necessarily get if you were going to use a more general purpose LLM.
So Zach, break it down for me. Like, if I'm a business owner, why do I care?
Yeah. I think there's a few reasons that you would care. From just a simple, what's the lowest hanging fruit? Why would you want to get started with AI? I think really it comes down to know that this technology isn't going anywhere, right? We've kind of gotten to the point that we understand that there's going to be business utility well into the future. I think there's a lot of conjecture around it. Some people are saying this could fundamentally change everything about our lives. Maybe that's true. I don't know, right? We're going to have to see where this goes. But I think what we can agree on is this is, at the very least, a pretty helpful tool that businesses can take advantage of. So I think if you want to get started with AI and you recognize the importance of forward thinking and understanding that this is going to affect us in some way into the future, It's a smart idea to start dipping your toes into it, right? Like maybe you want to get started with AI, but you're not sure where to start. Well, if you run your business on Salesforce or you're thinking about running it on Salesforce, that is sort of the easiest way for you to get started and actually getting results with it because you already have the data. You're already running your business from a trusted source, and you'll be able to easily create some sort of an AI tool that can leverage that data and provide value for the business. Now, I'm making a lot of assumptions there, which is you trust the data that's in your CRM. And if that's not the case, yeah, the AI is going to produce bad results, right? So you do have to have some foundational trust in the data that you have. Having clean data, accurate data is important. And the other piece is understanding your business process. If you can't articulate a process, even in just a conversation like this between you and me, well, there's no way we're going to be able to articulate that to an AI, right? So you do have to do some foundational, just fundamental business work to where you can articulate a business process and then rope in an AI agent to help with that process. And then that could lead to greater productivity. That could lead to the agent being able to handle some of the processes that maybe take a lot of time but are low value and allow your actual human employees to focus on higher value conversations and higher value tasks.
So, Zach, we've been involved in Salesforce AI for several years, and we're at the forefront when Agentforce was announced. We've actually built several of these agents for some of our clients. Talk about some of those use cases we've seen and some of the problems we've solved.
Yeah. And to your point, Einstein is not new. AI is not new. This whole generative concept is, what's really been around for 2 years in terms of the cultural zeitgeist, right? But predictive AI and other forms of AI have been around for a long time. And we've been working with things like predictive scoring inside of Salesforce for a while. So seeing this expand to the generative side is exciting because it allows us to do just a lot more sort of tangible things with AI instead of spitting out predictive scores, which is not minimizing the power of predictive analytics, but being able to combine it with something actionable is really cool. Basically saying, hi, you can now do things for us, as opposed to just giving us information that we can take action on. You can now take action on it. I think that's what's really exciting about it. As far as some use cases, we've had the opportunity to work with several customers. We've had a DNA genetics testing company where their goal was to reduce case handling time by 30%. And we help them implement an agent to basically make work towards achieving that goal. They have a knowledge base on Salesforce. We connect the agent to that knowledge base, and that is now deployed on their website. And they're able to have the agent handle sort of that first line of defense on all of the questions that may come in about, hey, what tests do you offer? What do these results mean? What does it mean if this is showing up on my test? And so at least anecdotally, we've seen that they're achieving an effective 40% deflection rate, which means essentially 40% of all the inquiries coming into that agent do not escalate to a human being. And so that's a massive time savings. And really that was a 2 to 4 week process to implement that and get that up and running. So depending on the use case that you have, it may not be terribly complicated to get it built, and you can do it in a relatively short time span. Another business we worked with is an insurance brokerage for employers. So they provide health plans, medical insurance plans for employees at different businesses. And they get a lot of questions about the policies that they offer and what are the deductibles here and the co-pays and when's my renewal date and things like that, right? And so that is typically a phone call or an email and somebody internally having to go and pull that policy information, find the details, and then answer those questions, right? Well, now with the agent that we built for them, the customer is able to just ask the agent. The agent will identify who they are, verify their email address by sending them a code and making sure that they actually are who they say they are. And then it can go and pull down their related policy information just by knowing who that person is. And that's all through the power of their CRM. So the CRM stores the information about that person and their business and the policies related to their business. And then it can pull those answers from that data and give them tailored answers specific to the policies that they have. So really simple use cases, but I think really powerful and saves a lot of time. And of course, that's really just the foundation, right? Like we expect that a lot of businesses will take that and then continue to grow, either find more opportunities to enhance those agents to be able to have more capabilities, or creating other agents to handle, other specific sort of business processes and problems.
Yeah, I love that. I'm just thinking, those two businesses you mentioned, that's a better customer experience. They're getting better answers more quickly. It's saving the businesses staffing expense and things like that. It's making sure that they're getting consistent quality of that knowledge, answering those customer inquiries. So across the board, just phenomenal stuff. What other agents have you seen from Salesforce? I know they're constantly rolling out new agents. There's a bunch on the roadmap. So talk to me about some of the other use cases Salesforce has in mind and some of the other agents they're envisioning.
Salesforce just put out an interesting report that analyzes some of the data that they've had from the past 6 months. And there is an 86% split. So 86% of all the agents deployed across everything in Salesforce have been service agents. So part of that is it's been around the longest. Another part of that is I think those are the most tangible, easy to understand use cases. So service is by far the largest use case so far. Now, as we get more types of agents and Salesforce comes out with a build your own agent, we may see that change and shift. But right now, predominantly, service is the biggest use case. There's an SDR agent, which allows you to automate outreach to leads in your CRM. So essentially, a new lead comes in and an SDR agent can identify that lead, craft an email to go out to that lead, and then nurture them through the top of that funnel. So for example, if that lead comes back with questions about your business and your products, well, the agent is grounded on data about your business and your products, and it can respond to those questions with the goal of booking a meeting with a sales rep. So everything that agent is going to do is essentially going to funnel down to a call to action to book with a sales rep and actually get that lead into the sales funnel. Right. And then once it gets into the sales funnel, that's a human, right? A human sales rep is taking over from there and actually having that high touch conversation, moving through the negotiation process and hopefully closing that opportunity, right? Another one is a sales coach. And this is more for internal use in Salesforce. It's actually pretty cool. I've used this myself. You can embed a window in your opportunity in Salesforce. And as a salesperson, you can record yourself talking about different parts of the business. So let's say you're in the negotiation phase of an opportunity. Well, that agent can understand what your business process is, how your sales motion operates, because this is all provided to it with unstructured data like PDFs. So you can take something that you're probably already providing to new sales reps when you're onboarding them. Hey, this is how we sell. This is what we sell. This is how to talk about this. This is how to handle objections, right? You give that to the agent so it understands that context. And then I can sit here just like we're having a conversation and let's say practice a pitch or actually go through a negotiation. And the AI will pick up on details about the opportunity and it will throw objections at me. And then it will record how I handle those objections. And at the end of it, it's about a 5-minute sort of conversation back and forth. It will analyze that conversation and come back with recommendations around, hey, I noticed that you did this really well. Good job. Hey, you could have handled this objection better, and here's why. And it's pretty cool, right? Because I think in a vacuum, it's not that cool, right? Like any tool could kind of do that, but because it is trained on your data and your process, and it's pulling information about your sales motion and combining that with a specific opportunity in order to give you that feedback, it could be a really good opportunity. Just even if you're a very confident salesperson, you know, any deal you're working where you want a little bit of extra practice and you have the time to do it, just a great opportunity to get some real-time feedback without having to, rope in a friend to do that for you. So those are kind of the immediate agents that are available today. There's a Agentforce for setup agent that is available now. And it's, I would say, in its earliest stages, and it's growing in capabilities into the future. But the idea is if you're a Salesforce admin working in the back end of setup, you can have an agent now where you can start asking questions about setup. So you can ask questions about access to different objects and fields, compare permissions to users, ask it to tell you where something is located, what objects do we have in the system. And so that's growing in capabilities over time. At TDX, they talked about giving the agent the ability to literally compare two users side by side. So if you and I are in the CRM and for some reason I can't see something, but I know you can see it, well, I can ask that agent, why is Eric able to see this, but I can't? And that agent will compare the permissions and just spit the answer back out to you, which is a massive time saver, especially for those of us that have been in the Salesforce ecosystem for so long. That would be like finding a needle in a haystack. You'd have to go through so many different screens in the back end to figure out where all the different permissions are for these two different users and profiles and permission sets, and to be able to have an agent kind of do that for you much faster, by the way, and for you instead of you having to do it yourself. I think that shows a lot of promise. So again, that's not available today, but that is coming into the future. That's sort of the long-term roadmap of Agentforce for setup. So those are really the primary agents that we have today. And then the long-term goal here, Salesforce is working on a build your own agent. So if you didn't want to start with a template of, well, I want this for service, I want this for sales, I want this for internal coaching, I want this for setup, you'll have the ability at some point to actually create your own agent and sort of start from scratch. And that kind of exists today. You can take a service agent and sort of repurpose it, right? Not use the standard topics, create your own sort of purpose behind it. But there will at some point be like a tailor-made, purpose-built, build your own agent sort of interface that's going to come.
Super exciting. You mentioned earlier in the conversation TDX, Salesforce's annual conference. What else? You were there. A bunch of team members went. What else did y'all see regarding Agentforce in terms of what we can expect to see pretty soon?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway is this is Salesforce's focus. Agentforce is sort of their primary focus. Everything is going to touch Agentforce in some way. So not to take away from any of the other products and services that Salesforce has to offer, those are still super important, but Agentforce is going to be plugging into all of those in some way. So it's a big topic of conversation. It's not going anywhere. Salesforce is doubling down on it. So I think any investment into Agentforce, we can safely say Salesforce is going to continue to put a lot of time and effort behind that. So that's one main takeaway. I would say there's several other things coming, but one is there's a lot more learning pathways available if you're trying to get started with Agentforce as a configurator or a consultant or an admin. So Trailhead now has what they call agent blazer status. So everything's a blazer with Salesforce, right? You're a sales blazer, you're a trailblazer, you're a service blazer, data blazer, agent blazer. So the blazer part is you're a trailblazer and you're specifically a trailblazer using Agentforce, agent blazer. So the agent blazer path now has several different training modules for Agentforce. And they've done something unique with this where they've split it into 3 different levels. So there's like a level 1, level 2, level 3. Levels 1 and 2 are available today, and level 3 is coming into the future. And this is a way to sort of start with baby steps, go into sort of, the middle ground with that level 2. And then level 3 is really focused on pushing you towards doing a lot with an agent, getting into practice orgs and building them out, and then actually getting your Agentforce specialist certification. So that's an exciting update. We've got 66% of that released, and the last sort of third of that is expected to come in the near future. Another big announcement that I think anyone that works on the development, admin, consulting, any side of Salesforce where you're configuring, any side of Salesforce where you're configuring, there's now an Agentforce Developer Edition org. So for a very long time, ever since AI and Agentforce and Data Cloud has come out, you could not get a developer edition that included these features. So the only way to do it would have been to be a partner and to go and get an SDO, which is a simple demo org, which is really meant for demo purposes, not really configuring and building things that you could deploy later or package up. Well, now you can do that. There is a dedicated Agentforce and Data Cloud developer edition org so that you can build and test and develop in your own practice environment. And beyond just practice, you can even build solutions and package them and deploy them. So that's a really exciting update. And then beyond that, there's, of course, a bunch of roadmap updates that you can check out from the Roadmap Exchange at Salesforce. There's a lot of focus on making Agentforce more friendly to developers, so integrating it into the Salesforce CLI as an example, and making it easier to package and deploy things. There are a lot of other sort of updates coming. There's a really cool feature called an AI Workbench, and this is not available yet, but it's essentially a really powerful testing suite that's going to come to Agentforce that's going to replace the current testing center. And it's just more robust. It allows for a lot more testing scenarios and feedback. And then there's going to be a wonderful thing called Interaction Explorer, which for businesses that rely on being able to analyze every conversation that the agent is having to understand patterns, Interaction Explorer is going to allow you to do that. So it's going to essentially allow you to look into every conversation that agent is having, pull out some analytics and data about those conversations in aggregate, help you determine every time this topic comes up, this agent is answering it in a way that I need to change, right? Maybe it is not answering this particular topic in the way we expect. And unless you didn't have those interactions, you wouldn't be able to identify that. So now that we'll have the ability to do that, we'll have the opportunity to surface some of those patterns and issues with the agent and refine those instructions to help it respond in a better way. So a lot of updates. I'd encourage anyone listening to go and just check out the roadmap exchange at Salesforce. Check out some of the sessions from TDX at Salesforce Plus. A lot of that is just available for free that you can go check out. And then, of course, a lot of folks like Salesforce Ben have some great recaps of everything that's been going on. So just check that out and see if anything kind of piques your interest.
Zach, it's been a great conversation today. So the takeaways, I think, at a high level, get started somewhere, right? If you've been thinking about it, start with your data, start with your business process, and start playing with the tools. I heard the other day that the AI we're using now is going to be the worst AI we ever use.
That's right. It's the worst it's ever going to be today.
Right. And so the two messages there is you need to get started now. You need to start understanding these tools. And then the flip side of that, keep humans involved, I think, for a little bit, just until we have a little bit more faith.
Always keep a human in the loop. And one thing I'll say, before we wrap is I think Agentforce and AI, if you're not involved in this world and you're trying to, or maybe you're just on the edge and you're not sure what to do, it can be intimidating. This is a wild leap in technology, and the actual technology infrastructure itself is pretty complex, right? But I think a tool like Agentforce allows you to get started, and it's not that difficult. It is relatively plug and play. Obviously, every business is unique, and there's, that's where we can come in and help figure out your business process and apply that to the technology. But it's not like you're going to have to start from scratch and build your own LLM and build all the logic and code behind that. The whole benefit of this is you can leverage generative AI specific to your business in a relatively short time frame. So by no means would I minimize the amount of effort that needs to go into planning and configuration and any of that, right? But what I do want to get across is I realize it's intimidating. Before I got involved in it, I was intimidated by it. I'm still intimidated by it in some ways, but it's not as hard to get started as I think it feels like it is before you make that jump. This is a great way to really get started with it without having to commit to transforming your entire business. You can just take it one step at a time. And if you like it, then you can start expanding and building upon it, which I think is a really great way to get started with a new technology.
Awesome.